This meeting is being recorded. I've been listening to that since March 16th.
Kathy, are you ready for us? Doesn't look like the closed captioning is full.
Yes, I have the closed captioning up. I'm just emailing you the separate link because I can't paste it anywhere.
Oh, not a problem. I will do that for you.
Okay, what's the email?
Is it J O'Neill, Jen?
Yep, or actually she can put it right in the Q&A if that is, that's a better option. And then I can answer it live.
Can paste it in there or anything.
I don't think I can paste it in the Q&A.
Somebody has to be in the questions and answers. Send me the Zoom link and that.
Yep.
Send this to me. Send me the Zoom link.
If you put it in the Q&A, then I can.
Hold on, she's talking. All right, let me see. I don't think I can.
Okay, no problem. Send it to me and I'll put it in there.
Oh, you're in it.
I'm not in it.
No, you just got the question and answer thing open. How do you do it?
Not a problem, Kathy. Send it to me and I will get it up there.
We set?
I believe so. Kathy will, yeah, that works.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Joe Vida, Superintendent of Public Schools, and I'm joined by my colleague, the Assistant Superintendent Jennifer O'Neill, who will be posting some information. Earlier today, you should have received 3 different guidance reports that have been published by Norton Public Schools utilizing information from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the CDC, Harvard University, and our own Board of Health and local needs that we saw as a school district. It's about 65, 66 pages of wonderful reading. If you want to fall asleep quickly tonight, you should start right after this meeting's over. These reports are all about one thing, and that is COVID-19, your children, the staff, and how we are trying to respond as a school community. The reports are grounded in the first report, what we call the reopening of facilities and operations. It's a guidance. The second report, if you will, is I call it C19, COVID-19 coronavirus protocol plans for how we want to do and respond to situations on buses, in schools, and in the community. And the third is our communication templates for situational responses. In other words, how you will hear from us, what format that would be in, how much information you would get. 2 of these 3 have already been shared with the staff. The third one, the communications template, was supposed to happen this morning, but I had a situation I had to deal with, so it will be dealt with staff on Friday morning, if I remember correctly. So for tonight's purpose, Jen, if we could put up the reopening of facilities. I'm not going to be reading these pages to you. I just want to kind of go through some core issues within what we're trying to do. So if you can go to page 4 right away. I wanted to start there just by simply telling you a couple of things that I think is important. As of this week.
Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Can everyone see?
I can see it.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Sorry. Just give me 1 quick second.
Okay.
Page 4.
Yep. So we wanted to make sure that we were looking at our system from a different perspective than maybe other districts did. The first one was making sure that parents and students felt comfortable with returning to school. And as important, and a lot of it based upon much of the news things that you've been listening to for the last few weeks, how my Teachers Association would respond to our plan, and specifically wanting to address the physical plant issues within our district. To date, we have spent $1.9 million in federal assisted grants and supports from the state on everything from disposable masks, clear masks, gowns, scrubs for specific staff in specific areas with high touch students, face shields, disposable gloves, hand sanitizer stands at every entrance exit of our buildings and bathrooms and all of that, plexiglass dividers, disinfectant wipes, and such. We also went to a different level. Oh, by the way, and HEPA filters in rooms that or office spaces that have limited to no windows. And we spent thousands upon thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on filters and upgrading them, getting all of our HVAC systems certified by a third party, Mechanical Air, which has been working on all of our systems the entire 7 years I've been in Norton. And making sure they were working accurately, they were clean, that the belts were updated, that the filters were the filters that are supposed to be used according to standards of the machinery itself. We then went, as you know, to 6 feet, not 3 feet, which automatically kind of causes to go into either full remote or hybrid. So we had hybrid and then parent choice remote. And then from there, we also did air quality tests, which every room that was done, it's an arbitrary decision by the third party. Those have also been posted on our website and provided. All of those tests came in within what is typically known as standard normal range. And then the third part was our air exchange units. Again, a third party came in this case, Mechanical Air, and tests everything to do with the air exchange and how many air exchanges take place in the classroom in a period of time. Based on square footage and so on and so forth. All of those assessments were completed. All of those assessments were shared, and all of those assessments were within norm. So those are 4 or 5 pieces of information, from PPE to doing things like the scrubs available to specific staff, paraprofessionals, and teachers in specialized area and high contact areas, as another way to try to support the staff and you, the families, and the children in staying as safe as possible. We then also took on the issue of masks, and we clearly defined masks as not gaiters and other type of things that are created. And let me tell you why, because it's been a little controversial. The first thing we did is we went pre-K through 12. The second thing that we did, and I did that out of soul knowing where adults working in the building stood about kids not having masks, understanding that there will be both children and adults not wearing masks because of medical conditions. The second part that was important with going with the full sanitary masks was I'm a former principal who has dealt with children and families who do not want to be compliant. And I just felt that if we were going to interpret it, I was going to interpret it for you, and that's what we're going to do. And to be quite honest, I think you've heard me say it. Some of you have said I'm arrogant about it. Take me to court. A court can say that you can use whatever you want to use. Until then, that's the policy that we're using, and that's where we're going to go. Understanding that there are always reasons and rationale for doing something different for an individual. And I stand by that because there are situations that take place with children, especially medically documented, as well as adults. Hand washing and hand sanitizing. We have over 500 gallons of hand sanitizer. We actually had to register with the town, and we had to move to the smaller volumes because we were putting basically a gallon in every classroom, and that could be considered combustible. We have placed signage on the right-hand side of my presentation there before you. Is you have our mask requirement signage, you have our hand washing signage, and you have our please stay safe 6 feet silence, and these are all on floors, walls, into bathrooms, into the entries of the building. It's been pretty well done, and those were all created by our communications office, Karina Soloway, who's part of that position that we created a number of years ago. That's really strengthened our response to this entire thing. Our COVID, next page, our COVID-19 district team consists of 5 school nurses. Actually now 6. As of today, I hired a district-wide nurse for the district based on savings that I made to other hires during the summer month. The reason for that is in order for us to have a true comprehensive plan of attack around any type of incident that takes place. This also will cover anytime a nurse is out from a building by having the sixth nurse. And then the other part that it will support us with in general is making sure that we're still taking care of the things that we are required to do so, i.e. the new flu shot requirement that's going to be put in place, or is in place and is due by the end of December of this year. It's a whole nother paperwork trail that we have to have for all students, except any of those that are medically documented otherwise. The assistant superintendent, myself, the director of facilities, Wade Lazat, the building principals as needed and by incident, the Norton Board of Health, and our coordinator of communications are all part of our team in our response. We will continue throughout the year as things are upgraded to hold these types of virtual parent meetings to provide you input. And the next page, on page 6, just briefly, we have defined our classroom spaces within the hybrid model at 6 feet. We have outdoor spaces, including tents that'll be put up as another area for students to buffer through. And then we have a medical waiting room area for COVID-19 as well. We have looked at our libraries and how they're being used. In some cases, they're being used for direct services in terms of students and the library program. In other ones, they're going to be closed down. We are still required by law to utilize the Norton Fire Department Fire and Code Safety Response. In other words, the fire department cares about the fire. The police department cares about an awful act in a school, such as a gun situation, an active shooter situation. All of that supersedes anything to do with COVID-19 and how we respond in that building. In other words, evacuating the building is more important. 6 feet is not important. One way is not important. So we'll be having 2 different types of scenarios or up to 3 different types of scenarios for students this year and staff. One around day-to-day COVID-19 and safety, one around how do we evacuate the building because of a fire, one because of other situations that could take place. That'll be confusing at first, but hopefully we know we'll be practicing it. Our next page, we have all of our entries and exits providing sanitation areas in bathrooms, in classrooms, in libraries, in next to meal distributions, near water fountains where you can only actually go into the automatic water fountains. You can't actually use the water fountain by yourself. In terms of drinking out of it, you have to go into some type of container, and next to mask breaks throughout. If you have any questions on any of this, including and specifically ventilation and HVAC, I've provided you information on Wade Lazat, our Director of Facilities, and also Matthew Denninger at mass.gov, who is available to your questions as well if you want to go beyond what I'm telling you. Indoor spaces without windows are going to be minimally used. However, we do have HEPA filters on order. All of those rooms are also been checked for air quality. And I shouldn't say all of them, it's randomly selected. We feel comfortable about this. Hallways, standard routines, when possible, one directions. Today I actually walked parts of the high school and parts of the JCS where I see one directions. LGN becomes a lot more difficult. The hallways are actually wide enough because it's a 1-floor building. The Yale School is a 3-story building on one side, the old side, the 1954 section, and then the younger side is basically one side as well, and the students are far away from each other, and it's just passing like you would in an aisle when you're food shopping. And then a couple of the things that are important, trying to take a look at locker rooms right now. Some of you have been asking about sports. Right now, 2 things about sports. We have some fall sports taking place. It's a totally different schedule that's taking place for those of you at the secondary. There are no middle school sports at this time per the league. The league did not want to participate. The Tri-Valley League for the high school currently says no spectators. That includes parents at games. That is being further reviewed. I've gotten some questions about that in the last few days. I talked about signage, and if you flip to page 9, Jen, we can actually see the actual full signage that we have. Our playgrounds are closed to our students during the school day. They will not be utilizing the swing sets and all of that. Outside, of course, is open. So we have cautionary signs for anybody after school that's on those, because those will not be cleaned on a regular basis by our staff. And then you see the multiple signs that we're using that we created, or in some cases came from organizations such as the CDC. Arrival and departure is probably one of our biggest concerns. I want to get real quickly about food services. If you can go on. Again, I'm not reading these, but food services, we are providing food with 6 feet of social distancing in our cafeterias, in some cases even more. We believe it's the proper place for students to eat and not in classrooms for numerous reasons. One of them, which is in our older buildings, a concern about pests becoming involved. We are working with our Chartwell's company on everything to deal with service delivery. Chartwell's, by the way, in NPS has served over 100,000 meals since March 16th to the community of Norton's children, senior citizens, and people who were in need. Really proud of that. And thank you to Chartwell's for all they've done. We will continue to utilize the same protocols and procedures. There's some information that's been shared out about those of you that are in full remote and need lunch, breakfast, and those of you that will be on the off day, learning from home versus coming in. When you're in, you'll be getting your food in school. When you're out, you'll be getting either food to go with you or food that's going to be sent to you. We're working on some of that specifics until this time. We are reducing all visitors to these schools at this time. That includes volunteers at this time. However, we plan to make some changes on that once the school year starts, especially if we have some positive information. In terms of our data, let me just tell you that every Monday afternoon, the local Board of Health sends me the latest data information that's shared with the school committee and it's shared with the Norton Teachers Association in order for us to take a look and see if there are any situations that require us to look at our schools. For example, we've had a combination of situations over the last 3 to 5 days that have increased our numbers, none of them to the point where we have to worry about closing schools and all of that. But again, these are the things that we keep our eyes on a regular basis. We are utilizing on page 17 and 18. 18 has a list of all of our chemicals that are used. These chemicals and the chemical sheets are available for all of them, and all of our schools are out of my office. If you would like to go through it and come up and take a look at it, you're more than welcome to. We could possibly also PDF you and send you a copy. We'll be doing all high-touch areas on a regular basis. As we know from this disease, this is very much a up in the air, coming at you from your mouth type of disease. The touch areas are important to clean, but as we see from more and more studies, it's less of a touch issue and more about the fevers and the exchange of fluid, if you will, in people because it's in the air. HVAC systems I spoke about, really happy. A few years ago, I started a preventative maintenance line item within our budget. And I said, it's not sexy to spend 6 figures on your HVAC systems, but I think that I can assure you, or I can assure you to the best that I can, because there's nothing that's ever guaranteed out of my office when it comes to some of these things. That it's probably been some of the best money that we've spent because it guaranteed us to be at the point that we're at today. If we hadn't been doing preventative maintenance on a regular basis in our buildings, changing out our air filters, making sure that we had a third party reviewing things, making sure that things were taken care of and not just a plastic bag put over something or something just no longer used. We're fixing things when they break in our older buildings, or we have a newer Norton High School, a middle school that's in great shape, and the 3 elementary schools with brand new windows has really become something that has helped us during this time and made it a positive for all of us. So that is our facilities and operations guidance form. A second form, if we go to that, Jen.
Give me 1 second and I will switch it out. Click protocols, Joe.
Yeah, we're going to go to responding to the protocols. Yeah, the protocol plan. And while you're doing that, I'm just simply going to say this one is a tedious one because it has a lot of if this then that type of situation. So you want to take a look at it. These are all recommended by Massachusetts Department of Public Health, as well as DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The most important page on here, and I'm going to stress this over and over and over and over and over again, is on page 5. Page 5 is your responsibility as families. It is my responsibility, or the responsibility of my staff. If you have a fever of 100 or higher, chills or shaking chills, if you have a cough not due to a known cause, like for example, allergies, if you have difficulty breathing or shortness of breath, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, headache when in combination with the symptoms, muscle aches or body aches, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fatigue when in combination, nasal congestion or runny nose, this is your responsibility to keep your child home, to keep yourself home, to be quite honest. And I know all of that is very difficult because we all have bills to pay and have to get to work, and our boss may not like it, and so on and so forth. One of the reasons why this is so important is that this stops you from coming into a building where there's going to be anywhere from 150 to 325 students, 50% roughly for each of our buildings, and anywhere around 40 to 100 adults. And so this is the first step in stopping the spread of such a disease. I highly suggest that you be cautious. We will absolutely have some flexibility with families around attendance on the issue of, not necessarily needing you to go to the doctors unless you're had this for a while and it's consistent, more than a couple of days, and sometimes right on the same day. We know this, all of us as parents. If a test is positive, remain at home at least 10 days, or at least 24 hours have passed with no fever and improvement in other symptoms. So again, this is very much a parental kind of importance. I am checking my temperature every morning before I leave my home to go to work, to the office. I've been doing it for weeks because I think it's the right thing to do. And by the way, those thermometers are not hard to find, are not easy to find, I should say. Page 6 gets you into this location of an individual and symptomatic, individuals exposed. And some of you might remember this from the springtime as well. The requirement right now is that if you're symptomatic is that you're looking at staying home for 14 days or getting a negative test in order to come back. And it's really, really, really important that we do this, because again, this is how we stop the spread when you're walking into a public building. And then the scenarios are each very specific to students, elementary versus high school, staff members. I want you to pay attention to something that's really important. Student on the bus, student in school. If they become symptomatic, they will go into our medical room, specialized room within the nurse's office. And we are going to seek you, the parent or guardian, to come and pick up your child, because the most important thing is to get the child, or the staff member in this case, out of the building so that we can really take a look at not spreading it, because we're already going to be doing contact tracing of it. If you can't pick your child up, you want to make sure that your emergency response form that you provide us every year has an updated form that will allow for someone who wouldn't necessarily be a high at risk person, i.e. a grandparent, to pick up the child. Because at that point, you don't know if the person is actually positive, it's just symptoms. So make sure that you have those forms updated as part of the back to school at the beginning of the year. If we can't find an emergency person to pick up your child will be transported to the nearest local hospital. Of course, we will work with you. We understand some families are waiting for someone to come and take over your job so you can come pick up your child. We understand we have members of the community that live work an hour away. We will work with you. This is not just a 15-minute time limit, you go. This is about calling you and making sure, and I'm just going to be very blunt, I can't wait for answers of, I can't pick you up. You're going to have to wait until the end of the school day. Decision will be made by the district to transport the child to the nearest hospital, because the potential health and well-being of every child and other adults in the building is a potential issue. So that's the reason for that as well. And that's probably the most important part of, regardless if it's on a bus. A bus driver does not have the responsibility to check for symptoms. They already have plenty of responsibilities. Their responsibility is for a child to have the proper mask on. And if it's a child without a mask, are they using some type of a face shield? Or if not, making sure that they get safely on the bus and they sit in their assigned seats. Buses will be cleaned between runs, for the record. It has a staff symptomatic and what should happen with those situations. And then we have what we have to decide if we have multiple symptoms within a school of the district, or even the community, you could say. The final decision rests with my office under the recommendation of the Senior Associate Commissioner, Russell Johnson, or Eric McMahon, the Senior Advisor to the Commissioner, for closing the school. So I have to go through DESE in order to close. In my particular experience of dealing with closures, I also like to inform the school committee that this is what I'm thinking of doing, just to make sure that they understand and can support that decision. We will be cautious during this entire process. And then if there's a significant increase within the community and we need to close, then again, I have to go through the protocol that I'm utilizing community cases or the municipalities' cases in order to be able to then share that with DESE, Department of Elementary Secondary Education. We use too many acronyms in public ed. DESE to assure the support for making the closure. So that is the overview of the scenario plan. Jen, we can move to the next one, which is the communications template. So this one is a little bit more, again, of a cut and paste on how do we deal with confirmed cases and what do we tell you? Remember that a medical situation of a child or a staff member still falls under all kinds of federal regulations, such as HIPAA. So the idea that I can give you names and grades and all of that will not happen. You're not going to get something from me that says, you know, hey, a child of third grade and so on. It'd be more general than that, but specific enough that it may only be going out to you because of a confirmed case that's a close contact. So it might be just your child's classroom. As you know, the elementary students are considered a cohort the moment they walk into that classroom, versus the secondary have multiple cohorts because they travel. So a lot more difficult at the secondary level than the elementary level to do the contact tracing in general. And if so, you have the confirmed case for the elementary scenario. This is pretty much what it would look like. It's very much template. And the reason why we're trying to provide you this is so that you know right away, first of all, what my forms will look like. One of my biggest concerns that we are worried about, to be quite honest, is social media. The first flu will be announced by somebody, an adult, on social media that it's COVID, without any understanding that it was actually COVID or not. It's just, that's what's going to happen. So I want to try to make sure that we get to you with that type of information. I would ask you over and over again. I think I have a pretty decent track record of providing clear communication on matters of health and safety in the past that I've had, including an asbestos situation last year. Someone who tried to break into our school a few years ago at one of our elementary schools, for those of you that were at that school, we try to make it as much information as we can give you, but at the same time protecting individuals. This is a situation where an individual may be in close contact, and then you have the confirmed case situations. You have the general confirmed cases template that we'll be using. We will use less talk in the communications office for responding, and then my office will go into crisis mode. We have a new app that we're going to be, internal app that we're going to be putting together. It's in process. They actually needed all these plans to do it, so I expect it in the next few weeks. That app will be able to contact me about a potential situation of COVID or any other crisis, but specifically COVID, anywhere that I am in the world. I have no plans of traveling, for the record, but in other words, if I'm sitting in my home and all of a sudden someone wants to say there was a confirmed case within our buildings and they worked in the buildings, then I can start the process. And everybody who is involved in the decision-making process, the communication process, getting out facts would go into play and do their part of the job. Then we're able to self-audit that information because it's all time-stamped and so on to see how quickly we responded, how accurate we responded, do we want to make changes on how we respond, and so on and so forth. So I can see myself with the first confirmed case. It's probably going to happen, folks, where something in the communication didn't go as smoothly as we wanted to. So that app allows us to really take a look at how communication took place. Was it accurate? Was it timely? Where did we drop the ball? Hopefully we never do, and become effective and better. We will also utilize actual data on our website for any type of confirmed cases. Many of you know that we use our website a lot for information. Media statements out of my office, because the media will be all over us anyways. Multiple case scenarios and how we're going to respond to that. Again, these are all templates. I think if you recognize it, you'll see that I don't start many of my announcements with my formal title. It's usually, good evening, this is Joe Bietta, Superintendent of Norton Public Schools. That's what you should be used to hearing from me. And if it's not me, then it would be the Assistant Superintendent of Schools or another designee. Typically, it'd be Jennifer as the number 2, because I'm not able to do it, or whatever the case may be. Reminding ourselves that any of us could get this disease, and so therefore we have to have other people responsible and ready to go if we need to. The biggest change would be the closing of the district, and because of multiple cases and scenarios, and having to change to a different learning model. In other words, from hybrid to everybody's full remote or all remote. Right now we have hybrid, and then we have parent choice remote. Just a few minutes ago, I received an email that the high school, for example, just released its schedule. Student schedules are now on the portal where students can get them. Student portal learning model of parent choice remote. Those are not the students' schedules. Again, those are not the student schedules. Those are the schedules they would have had if they were in school. They'll get a different schedule of courses from Marty Gagan, who's the Yale School principal, and he'll be in charge of the virtual K-12 and assisted by my office and Jen's office. So the protocol for changing of a learning model, because I have to announce a change of closure, or let's say it's positive, we have to announce an opening, that would come with a transition of some time, not weeks, but at least probably a few days, simply because we'd have to change what students are going from in the parent choice to just all remote, and also making sure that all of our remote learning for students on full remote for the district have the right assigned staff, support staff, and so on and so forth. So again, we don't anticipate that to be what it was in the spring, but it will be. We have over 318 students on parent choice remote. That's pretty much slightly bigger than the size of the LGN in terms of students. So you'll have to bear with us on some of those changes. Currently, we have MIAA certain sports at the high school with a creation of a 4th season. We have no middle school or high school activities, no middle school sports. We won't have any middle school sports for the fall. They're looking at maybe moving them. The winter decisions for both MIAA high school or the NMS have not been made. All activities, though, currently are not happening. We are going to go well into 3 to 4 weeks before we even consider having clubs and activities within the schools, because they create physical cohorts, different cohorts within buildings and even within grade levels. And we're trying to maintain as much of that consistency as possible. And then lastly is we will probably send reminders to you on a regular basis about our protocols, reminding you where to go to get the information. Some of it is put on you to read and to get, but as you know, I have a tendency that every time we send out a message, we just send out the same attachment if we have to, so that it's there for you and you don't have to go to the website. You'll see the changes on our website since March, but we've upgraded all along. Very specific, pretty easy to follow, by topic area, if you will. All of the principals are doing virtual meetings starting, I believe was it tonight or tomorrow? Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. That was sent to you as well, and it's on our district site. It'll go through next week. Those are very specific. If you miss those will also be posted for everybody. Next week, we'll also have a specific virtual meeting for all remote parent choice remote, I should call it. I think we're going to have to come up with a new name, like Norton Public Schools Virtual School System or something. And please, there was a joke earlier today, do not call it the Bayetta Memorial. I do not need a memorial. I want to make it through this.
We've started calling it NPS Distance Learning Academy because we had to distinguish between other things.
Right.
As well. So we'll be hosting that next, I believe it's Tuesday night, the 15th at 6:30, I believe.
Chromebook distribution, just to go through a few questions. Chromebook distributions have started. You should have received that information as well. And as important to the Chromebook distribution is that our new Chromebooks are in. They have arrived. So we're actually trying to get those new Chromebooks to students as part of the redistribution. That's why you got some new dates and information on some of the grades. Should have received it last week. And again, that's on our district site as well. The percentage of parent choice is going to be roughly 13 to 15%, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't have the exact number, but it's going to be right around that. It's over 10%, but less than 15%.
It's right under 14 the last time I checked.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The school start times and end times have not changed. Now, here's what I can assure you. Has anybody been on 123 lately? We are doing everything we can to get that project to going back to a night schedule. Currently, we are not successful. So I am concerned that with the added cleaning on the buses and all of that, and now 123 being the way it is, that our teachers will be at work, your students may be arriving later than you want them to arrive. And again, we're working with trying to get that project on 123 to really understand that they need to be closed down, or else it's going to really cause some issues. I think it's going to require other people to see it, more than just thinking that the school department is whining. There will be information shared with families for any students that are going to be at home and on the first day, either because they're full remote or because they're on the hybrid model, i.e. my daughter on the Wednesday is on the hybrid at home. So therefore, there'll be a distribution of information sent to her. That's why it's important to pick up those Chromebooks. Some of you, with all due respect, haven't done it already. You need to get to the schools and get those Chromebooks if possible for your child to be successful right away on day one. Just to clarify, excuse me, go ahead.
To reiterate that piece right there, some of our youngest students, K-2, do not have Norton email addresses, so that will come directly to the parents. And I know our elementary staff is working on a virtual open house for students and families so they can share that information with you. Students in grades 3 through 12 will likely go directly to the student email. So make sure that your child is checking their email. You should have gotten their login information as well.
Yeah, questions about masks. Right now, we're utilizing, masks that you've been wearing out in the public. This happens to be, one of mine. It's a cloth mask. That's the one that I prefer. We do have masks in the schools as well, including smaller masks for the younger children. We recognize that we may have a student who throws up on theirs. I don't know, does something with it, it breaks. We always have extra masks at the schools as well. Filters are replaced at appropriate levels. The answer to that is 1, yes. And for 7 years that I've been superintendent, they've been done. They are done 4 times a year, which is the standard protocol for those companies, according to Mechanical Air, our professionals that work with us. We've always done it 4 times a year. This year, we're adding that we're looking at it being more than 4 times a year. And then 2, we're looking at incidents. So when we have an incident in an area, a classroom, then part of the automatic response for cleaning that room would include new filters. We just got 75,000 new filters in the other day. Students are allowed to bring their food to school with them. It says, will all children receive free meals until the end of the year? The answer to that would be based on free and reduced lunch currently. So we have to utilize the standard operations of school in session versus school not being in session. So it would be free and reduced lunch and paid lunch. First day of school is going to look like? That's a great question. Well, it's going to look like the hybrid model of students who are in on Wednesday and Friday go to school on Wednesday, while the Tuesday, Thursday students stay home. versus the remote students are all opening up to figure out some of their schedules and what it looks like and what are the course assignments that have been given to them. We currently have hired staff, certified staff in the remote learning, or we have moved teachers on FMLA or other medical reasons or leaves of absence to become remote teachers full-time. Understanding that remote full-time is facilitation of learning with some direct learning, but it's not in the same process as the hybrid model. Let's just keep that in mind, because we're using Florida virtual schooling as well as Edgenuity as the course delivery format. There are some really good things in both of those, and there's some things that we're going to have to support at a larger level. But it's not the same thing as what's happening day to day when students are coming to school. And on the day that the students are home learning, they will be having a video for each of their classes. So if they're at the secondary level, 5, 6, 7 classes. If they're at the elementary level, from their elementary teachers about what they're doing for the day, what's required of them. And we are back to normal grading as well. Everything to do with triggering a shutdown has to do with a protocol that runs from my office, the Board of Health in Norton, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and then DESE. And the numbers that we'll be utilizing per our understanding is we're looking at anything that starts to get us into the red zone, and we're looking at clusters. Clusters is one of the most important things to look at because the impact on more and more people and more difficult to stop from growing. The active cases in Norton stands at 12, and that's after a tick up in the last few days from a very specific situation that took place. Somebody asked about flu shots. We are working with, and thank you to the Norton Board of Health, having student flu shots on school grounds with parental permission. Of course, with the understanding that if your child is really hesitant around needles, which I think many of them are, I'm one of them, and I'm 52, that we may want to utilize a different protocol, such as your local pediatrician office or other forms. But we are looking to do that. That was a little bit of a curveball, if you want me to be quite honest with you. It was a curveball to receive that the flu shots were going to be mandated by an act of the governor. So I think there's a lot of questions that are still going to be answered there before we move forward. But if you can get a flu shot, please do it as soon as you can and get the paper trail with it. Bring it in and go to the nurse's office. Learning from Monday schedules are what would be your early release schedule in schools for the hybrid model. And what I mean by that is many of you, all of you have seen the early releases where the kids have, quote, a half a day, and they might get 15 or 20-minute periods at the secondary level. Or they might be only doing certain topics at the elementary level, and then the teachers have lunch, and then they go into professional development. In this case, creating of curriculum, and then students have an assignment for the rest of that day that they have to complete as well. So that's what that looks like. Then you go Tuesday, Thursday. Again, Tuesday you get assignments for Wednesday when you're home learning, and then Thursday for Friday when you're home learning. When you're in school, you're going through an actual as much of a typical day as we can have under C-19.
So just to add to that too, parents will be getting additional information from their child's teacher regarding those schedules, especially setting up those initial learning days. On Monday, on those remote days, students will be live with their teachers during that half-day schedule. And there may be times where your child has been scheduled for a live session with a staff member on the days in which they're learning from home. We are trying to provide some of our interventions that way. So if they are an English language learner or receive reading supports, they may be doing that on the days when they're home. And the reason we are doing that is to give our students more opportunity to connect with our staff and more interventions. So you would get all of that information from those teachers as well.
So the specific questions about if one of my child, if you as a parent receive an email communication from my office that a child in the vicinity of another person tested positive, what does that mean to me and my child? The protocols right now is that if you're around somebody who's tested positive, then you have to go at least 24 hours without any symptoms whatsoever. The cautionary area that we've tried to look at is we're looking at more of a 3-day situation. However, right now the protocols are looking at 24 hours without anything. In typical, I'm not a medical doctor, but in general, that's the approach. However, I could be shutting down the classroom and saying, I'm sorry, but everybody's staying home for at least the next X number of days, because of the contact tracing shows us other information that could be related to that classroom. So that's the best information I can give you on that right now. We're going to be working with 2,400 students, over 400 staff, and a community of 19,000 people. That's how much of an impact this has on a regular basis for us. There's no set number on how many faculty or students to test positive. There's no 10% or 7%, or it's all based upon how did it happen, where did it happen, where are the clusters that it's taking place with. Couple more questions. Oh, I think I just moved that too fast.
There's a few questions about teacher assignment and teams and student schedules. I know you mentioned that the high school schedule was released earlier this evening. The rest of the teacher assignments will be going out by the end of this week through the mail, and I believe the middle school schedule will be released by the end of the week.
So let me talk to you a little bit about this without getting too specific and violating stuff. We have over 20 people not physically in our buildings for this coming year. 20. It has been a massive undertaking the last 4 weeks. This morning I was still hiring folks, are getting recommendations. This afternoon we received 2 resignations because they got other types of jobs that they were more wanting to have. A person who was going to be a paraprofessional for us got a second-grade job with someone else. Those types of things are still happening. I'm still looking for a remote math teacher. Still don't have anyone. I've had 6 interviews, 4 recommendations for hire, and all 4 of them turned us down and went to go work for someone else. This is what's happening in the world right now in terms of the day-to-day. You will see a lot of new names in some of our schools. In particular, a lot of new names in the hybrid model at Norton Middle School, and not as many at the elementary, and then also some at the secondary. So it's pretty significant change in staff. Pretty significant. It's not a turnover. It's just people are going to be working in other areas, either remotely or they're actually home and not going to be working with us, and they are under a leave of absence. And so that's a pretty significant time. So if you're looking at just under 14% of the students learning from home or remote learning 5 days a week, and that's about 14% of our students, we're looking at above 10% of our staff, specifically teaching staff and support staff, that are not with us in the traditional sense, or not with us at all for this coming year. Where's the list? Where's the info about the full remote learning meeting? That is right on our district website, but that you can go to, right, www.k12.ma.us, and you'll see all the publications on the meetings that are happening on within our calendar as well. My children are cohort 1, which means they will be doing in-home learning. Will I find the details about the next week's about this next week during the open houses? Yes, you'll get some more specific information from your building principals with some further details. We decided to go building by building with that instead of just me doing it or somebody just speaking to you, because it means so many different things to so many different people, and for some of you it means multiple different things because you have multiple children in different places. So understanding the mass breaks. So the mass breaks can work in a couple of different ways. Almost all of our classrooms are at the elementary level are more than 6 feet. Students will be utilizing going outside. They'll be utilizing the hallway. They'll be utilizing areas like the library. the cafeteria where they'll actually be eating during those actual mask breaks. We have tents that we're putting outside of our schools as well. But the intention here is that we're trying to make sure that students are also moving, because at the elementary level in particular, we do not have a stand and deliver classroom. But I do think it's really, really important for us to recognize that students are able to move within their classroom as long as they are socially distancing and using their mask. The number one thing is the mask. I can't tell you how much of information I receive on that on a daily basis from everybody. And it's really, really important. And so if we have a student who, because of medical situations, behavioral situations, is documented they can't wear a mask, then we're going to make sure that anybody that is around them is more than the 6 feet and has a mask. Just today, I had to do one of those situations with one of my staff members. If you do not have a teacher listed on any type of released schedules, that is because we are still looking for a teacher. Your children do not have to have a flu shot for the first day of school. Flu shots are due the 31st of December. So I would say you have some time, but also make sure that you understand that there are some issues out there, especially in the city schools, not so much out here, but doctors are really not wanting to see patients for immunizations. That's become an issue in some areas. So we've been asked to work with families as much as we can, but at the same time recognizing the public health issues. So we could be educating somebody remotely until immunization such as or a flu shot actually came to be, but we're still educating you because remote learning is considered to be part of the traditional learning today. Changing buses. So if you currently are going to drive your students and then you're looking to change is going to be based on availability unless you are required by law to be provided transportation. So that's the best answer that I can give you. It doesn't mean yes, but it also doesn't mean no. We would have to know ages, the routes, where you're coming from, and availability of that bus. Open houses, I believe, are being recorded. We can ask the principals to make sure that we do that, Jen.
Yeah, we are being recorded.
If you haven't
through and answer a few at the same time here.
Yeah. Students get their parking pass at the high school by actually going to the office, and they'll be provided one. And there is no fee this year, but you still have to register. How do we contact for username and logins if we've not received them? Jen, that would probably be through the Let's Talk is the easiest
Yes, that is
way to do that.
Yep.
So if you go to the district website, whoever just asked that question, sorry, I skipped down already. Go to the district website, go to Let's Talk. Make sure you have a returning email address in your name, and we will get that information to you. Yeah. All grades, not all. I'm sorry, Jen.
No, I'm just saying there's a couple questions here about Chromebooks, and people are concerned that maybe they're not scheduled until the 14th or the 15th. The reason for that is actually because the kids are getting brand new Chromebooks and they just arrived. So unfortunately, that's kind of, it is what it is. So, we think to get them into your hands, but you will have them before the first day.
The decision that we had to make was we were giving those children that are getting new ones on the 13th, on the 14th, and the 15th, their new ones, because we were anticipating and told that these new Chromebooks would not be in until at least the earliest October. Some phone calls were made, connections were made, and we got the brand new ones. So instead of distributing the old ones, then getting the new ones to you and collecting the old ones, we went with a one-step process as much as possible.
There are students that will still be using the same Chromebook that they had last year.
Yes. Yeah.
Excuse me. But then we also have the ability to push out updates to those Chromebooks. So excuse me, I just joked. So no worries about that if you feel like things need to be updated.
If you're having issues with returning things or wanting certain things, then the best way to do it, to be quite honest, I'm doing this generally because a few of you have made a couple of comments. Just go to the Let's Talk. Choose myself, Jen, Karen Winsburn Technologies, the best person to go to. And just again, if you go anonymous, we cannot respond to you. If you leave your name and your email, that's all we need. If you want a phone call, we can also do that. But those two things, we've been responding pretty well to those on a pretty consistent basis. No one in Norton Public School System is telling you that it's going to take you X number of days to respond to your email. We've been diligently trying to respond to those as fast as we can. based on the priority level that they are. Students portal info, again, Jen, some of that stuff is being shared as part of the open house process, or if students need new emails, those will be provided to them as well. Confirming the 9th grade Chromebook pickup was changed and is next Tuesday the 15th. I don't have that right in front of me, but I'm going to say if you go on the site, I'm pretty sure that I know that it's been updated because I'm one of those freshman parents. I believe that it's set for the 15th. The students should be bringing their Chromebooks when they come to school. They should constantly travel with them. It's their new notebook, if you will. They'll be utilizing. Did the iPads for kindergarten come with a charging block? God, I don't really know that, Jen. I'm going to guess.
I would assume that yes, they should.
I believe the answer is this. Right, and then one of the things we're going to be trying to teach students is, before you go to bed, make sure you plug in your iPad. Make sure you plug in your Chromebook. I have to do it here at home from my laptop that I'm on with you tonight. Remote schedules are being worked on, Tracy. Sorry that you haven't gotten them yet, but we're still trying to put students into courses or allow students to select courses at the secondary level, i.e. at the high school level. At the middle school level, it's pretty much consistent to what their schedule was. So if they were getting a pre-algebra class, we're putting them that in Ingenuity. If they were just getting Math 8, then they're in Math 8. But the secondary, we're trying to align it to transcripts that students want. And some of the courses, i.e. electives, i.e. honors English, is a big issue. So we're creating those extra things that students are doing within the concept of honors. Or our remote guidance counselor is going to be reaching out to students to fill out those schedules with the courses that are available to them versus the courses that are not available. Going out to one of our families, I thought that the announcement was that breakfast and lunch would be provided to the end of the year based on the email. The expected transition of this waiver is that if all families, there will be no charge. You know what? You may be 100% right, and I may be 100% wrong. I just don't have it in front of me. Let me see if I can clarify that answer for you and put out another clarification tomorrow so that no one has misinformation. I've just wrote it down, end of year, and what does that mean based what I've actually said. I apologize for that.
The other thing we will include in that message tomorrow, Joe, if it's okay with you, are just confirming the open house times for the parent question and answer sessions for each of the 5 schools, along with the remote parent information night. So that way, I know there's a few questions about missing that announcement. We will make sure that that goes out to all families tomorrow as well. There's a couple questions here about add drop or switching courses at the high school. Unfortunately, we have very limited ability to make those changes because of all of the work that goes into placing students into cohorts. There really is very, very little wiggle room when it comes to making schedule changes at the high school. So I'm sorry about that.
Children on IEP and that are on for the 4 days a week, or the teachers be reaching out to the families. That's one of the things we're working on right now, is trying to get some type of a communication protocol for that. At least something with the person's name on it, something that gives you information. So yes, we are working on that. Again, we have significant changes in special education staff and ongoing. And that's one of our biggest concerns that's taking place this year, is the amount of changes that we have taking place.
And you should be hearing from your child. If your child is on an IEP, you should be hearing from their liaison at some point between now and the 16th. If you haven't heard from them already, they are required to reach out by every family.
So the Chromebooks and picks up earlier than the dates that are being published, unfortunately, because of we just don't have the staffing to be able to make them available earlier, because we're trying to get them out. So we're going with those dates. We'll work with you if you can. Reach out to Karen Winsford directly via the Let's Talk. If it's a must that maybe you're not going to be around or available, we can try to work with you as much as we can. Flu clinics would be held in the schools, by the way, schools, plural. I don't know which ones yet, but it could be all 5.
Yep, there's some questions here about passwords for Chromebooks. You can put that through Let's Talk. There's also several questions about should students bring their devices back and forth every day? Yes, they
Yes.
absolutely should. Please bring them back and forth. Please make sure that they are charged. And let's see, what else do we have here? There's a lot of questions, and I know you guys have a lot of questions. I think a lot of these will be answered at the building level as well. Student supplies, we are working on creating materials bags for students that they will have at home and that they will have in school. Students will, especially at the elementary level, will also have the ability to leave certain materials in school. They'll have their own little designated area where they can leave their materials every night. High school, middle school, we have very few actual textbooks at this point. The majority of our textbooks are all digital copies. So as long as students have their Chromebook and any notebooks that they may need, they really don't have to carry a lot back and forth.
Question about if says as my wife and myself are teachers, if our school needs to go to a remote method due to an outbreak and we have to quarantine, am I assuming that my kids would also do the same? How would that be handled as far as my children's education is concerned? So if I'm reading this right, you're both teachers, your school system is quarantined, and your children have to be quarantined, then we would be trying our hardest right away to move your children into remote learning as well. Again, this is part of that whole process of what's going to be happening in the area. So they may have to move teachers even and all of that. But the fact is that yes, it's true that it's gonna be problematic for those of us who work in education, where our schools where we work is different from where we live, and there's a direct impact on our families. So we will have to, when we get there, we're going to have to deal with it. But it could be that your children would be moving to remote, which means they could have a different assignment for a period of time with a different teacher and support, with the understanding that IEP services would still be delivered. I'm trying to get to some general questions. School day for remote children. So part of the choosing remote is that there are assigned, if you will, educators that I've been hiring. They are now part of the Norton family, if you will. They work for us. They're certified. We are looking to make sure that they are facilitating the education of the online learning that is taking place. You will see that if a student is in 6 to 12, that they actually have video clips and everything else as part of the actual Edgenuity instruction that's on there. And the teachers facilitating the need for taking attendance, making sure the students are doing well, creating small groups of instruction for students that are struggling, creating groups for students that need further enrichment, creating actually even other work that students could be doing around supplemental or enrichment, making sure that the students are utilizing the system, doing the system and doing the work. If not, then following that up with the guidance counselor and the building principal so that they're not doing the work, or if they need other supports that need to be provided to them. At the elementary level, how many kids do we have? The general view is I was in an elementary school today, and that teacher is going to have no more than 8 in each cohort. So 8 on one, 8 on the other. Typically, that class would have been 21, which means within that grade level or within that class, about 4 to 5 students are actually choosing to stay remote. A ton of room. Matter of fact, we actually expanded the room to be way beyond 6 feet. So traditionally, at the Hayes School, I walked the rooms today. It's anywhere from 8 to 12. I think there's 2 rooms at 14 because of students' service delivery. At the high school, we do have a bunch of rooms at 15, but again, they have the longer tables, 1 student per, and they're more than 6 feet apart, and they also have more space to themselves. So, question about quarantining of students for 24 hours without any type of positive. This would be exposure versus actually symptomatic. So if you look at the chart that we provided to you, it goes in through 2 different directions of exposure, looking at 24 hours of being completely free versus connected to someone who's actually has symptoms where they can either take a test and come back with a negative result, or stay home for the 14 days and only come back after the 14 days. And it's an individual person's call. There's a lot of, there's an underlying question there. Can parents make that call? This is the reason why the more information is provided to us, the more we can provide you support on what to do. And one of the reasons why we put out the information tonight is if you look at the chart of what it means, you'll see symptomatic, asymptomatic, you'll see exposure versus actual symptomatic. And each of those situations then speaks to how many days you should be contemplating. I can only imagine as a dad having to figure out how I'm going to keep, in my case, it's a high schooler, but if I had a young child, keeping a young child home for 2 weeks while, which is not a typical 14 days. I mean, most kids aren't home for 14 days with the flu. So how do we actually take care of students and support them is another thing that comes into play in terms of giving them remote lessons or moving them to remote in that time. Band has not been canceled, just to let you know, at the high school level, but band is right now not banned. We still are under the guides that woodwinds and brass instruments cannot be played unless they're outside. There's no guarantee that we can go outside, so we're kind of playing the dynamics of what music looks like at this time. The student is on a night.
Can students carry and drink from water bottles during their class? And would they be allowed to take their mask off in order to do so?
Yeah, a student can carry a water bottle. It's their own water bottle because we do have water bottle fill stations throughout our buildings. The question is, when's the best time for them to actually take a sip of their water? The best time would be when they're in their own 6-foot spot and not passing in a hallway. Because when you're passing on the hallway, there's people potentially coming in different directions in some of our schools. But we are still drinking water. We're just doing it in a way where we're keeping half the mask on, taking our water, putting it back on.
Thank you.
Any students on IEP with services, you will be getting names of contacts. We're working on that. Our regular staff that works with Wilson, for example, as a program, will be the people that are providing that actual service delivery versus OTPT and speech could be a combination of a third party called teleteachers or one of our staff, and that's all based on caseloads and so on. You can always switch from any model to another model with the understanding that that transition doesn't happen from Monday to Tuesday. The protocol for us would be if you're in hybrid and you want to move to remote, we're going to probably need 24 to 48, probably 48 hours. So that would be hybrid, you're coming into remote parent choice only. If you're going the opposite, remote parent choice only, and you want to come into hybrid, that will require us to go through a protocol where we would keep you in remote and transition you, and that would probably be at 10 days transition time, or a negative test right away, and you could be in potentially in less than 3 to 5 days. 8th graders and new Chromebooks. I believe they carried the same Chromebooks for 3 years. So 8th grade, if you're an entering 8th grader, you would have had it since 6th grade. And if you're a 8th grader going to 9th grade, then you are getting a new one. And a couple more here.
There's a question here about money that was left on the My School Box account when students left in March, and will that money still be available? That's a great question.
Yeah,
as a mom, I wonder the same thing.
As a dad, I wonder the same thing because I know mine left at least $50 in there.
Yeah, we left money too.
I'm pretty sure that the money is still there. That their contract doesn't. They might have hit you with some type of a fee for keeping it there, but they don't. I don't believe they have the right to just take the money at the end of the year. We will ask that question on. That's my bucks.
Yeah, we'll check out that question.
Yeah, we'll check on that question too and put that on that Q&A.
And Joe, can you add confirming Chromebook dates for the high school and the middle school on that communication as well? We can do that.
Yep, I'll make sure that communications office tomorrow answers these questions with maybe just a blurb to these questions and sends it out to everybody. And they have to, instead of people having to go look for it. They should, student parking should be done on the day that they come to school. That's the easiest way for us to do it. Again, we're trying to keep people out of the building as much as possible. Are we hosting school choice students from other communities? Yes. We've a school choice district for 5 years now, so we still have students that are school choice students. Supply lists are somewhat more limited this year, I guess would be the word I'm going to use there. Jen, I know that supply lists are, well, let me just rephrase that. Supply lists are Jen's expertise. They are my pet peeve.
So supply lists have been posted on the school websites, and I believe sent out by the building principals. If you have a specific concern, email your principal directly. And if there's a concern with families that are unable to purchase the supplies that are recommended, please do not hesitate to let us know. We do have a number of student backpacks that have supplies in them that would be more than happy to provide you with. If that's the case, you can reach out to my office directly, or reach me via email, and we would be more than happy to get you a backpack and some supplies too.
Any questions to do with lockers? To be quite honest, we are trying to stay away from lockers as much as possible. For example, at the elementary level, where we really don't have lockers except for the Yale school, our goal is to try to have students keep things with them as much as possible. But we've also set up some formats for lockers. I believe, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the middle school is still utilizing lockers.
Not at this time.
Okay, so they moved away from the color box because of the number of kids in the hallway. Okay, so at this time, students are keeping everything with them.
Correct.
Um,
We may need to reevaluate that as the year goes on,
right,
with big, heavy winter coats and those types of things.
Right. Students are not able to sit together during lunch. They are 6 feet apart at their own individual desk. Great question. It's also not the norm, right? The entire situation is not the norm. Yes, tonight's meeting, I missed the IEP 504 virtual presentation. I believe that was recorded and it should be on our website. I'll look into that for you as well. Just circling that to make sure I don't forget it tomorrow. There is no police detail currently at the high school of intersection 123, but that is something I am considering for the high school Yale area. No plexiglass dividers provided for students at their desks. That was one of the questions. I'm sorry, are there plexiglass provided? Unless we have a special circumstance. We do have plexiglass provided with our specialists that provide services. Go ahead.
Does the school have any authority regarding kids walking together after dismissal?
No, not on off of school grounds. No, I do not. I do not have any authority off of school grounds, but we will be talking to students about being on school grounds. Right now, we're still, trying to work with students on the playgrounds. Never mind walking up. But no, I'm sure we're going to still see that huge group of kids at Norton Middle School walking together on the early release day, or on some type of a day to go to the pizza house. So that's going to be, unfortunately, more on parents and children than it is on the system. Specials are a problem at the elementary level with gym and art. We have some situations right now where we have an art elementary teacher that's out, and we're trying to backfill that. We've had no success so far. So we're looking at other specials to add to students. And then gym is very specific to either A, being outside, or B, being in the classroom 6 feet apart and doing wellness and health. The traditional gym is not being used in many of our cases at the elementary level. Question again about new student in 9th grade. How do we receive portal info? And will schedule be mailed as well. That's all on our system. If Sharon, if you go to Let's Talk and just simply put in your child's name and a return email, we can get that answer to you before the end of the week. If not, ASAP.
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to read some of the health questions because I think maybe the principals could potentially answer some of these other questions.
Sure.
Their sessions. Is there any talk that if there's a student that tests positive, is the state going to be providing rapid tests to the district?
Yeah, so that is a phone call from my office to the state directly that we see some type of a situation where we are concerned that this could be a growing situation. So I will have full access to request. I don't have the power, but to request that we see a situation. I would probably get our Board of Health to help us with that as well, and simply say, we need this to be handled ASAP, and therefore we need to go into that rapid process. So yes, we are part of that response.
How will a class or cohort be affected if a student is COVID positive?
Again, we'll go through the process of contact tracing within the elementary. That group of students in that goes right into the process of potential self-quarantining, the 10-day or the 14-day. If you're at the secondary level, it's everything around 6 feet in front of you, 6 feet behind you, 6 feet to each side, and 15 minutes. So anything of a positive that happens there, we have to contact trace that student, and then from there, take a look at where that student was, and then from there, who they spoke to, who they were in contact with, and do the contact tracing situation and communicate, and then clean that area or multiple spaces. By the way, we're quote deep cleaning every day because we're utilizing a 99.99% spray system, and then all knobs and all that stuff daily. But every night, that spray system is happening in our buildings. It goes into the air. It's an electromagnetic, goes into the air, and it touches all surfaces. And within 30 minutes of touching that surface, it's within an hour, it's completely dry, no film, no residue, and it takes effect right away, but with 30 minutes being at 99.99% effectiveness. I love this question, Zach. Thank you so much. We do have the question is, with everything going on, you all clearly have your hands full. Is there anything we need from you, the community, that can help you? Thank you for that question. Listen, all we need is, what's the best way? Patience. Your patience is the most important part. We're gonna have mistakes. Things are gonna happen. Please know that all these reports you got tonight and everything else that we've been doing for days, the 10 days of the training with the teachers that ends next week, the pushback, the I want it this way, not that way, and all of that happens as part of these discussions. Patience to me is one of the most important things we have to do. Opening day, I talked to the staff and I said to them, this is a year that we have to be flexible, which to me also means understanding, that we have to be kind to one another, because this is really high end. As a father, sending my child to school and knowing that there's a disease out there that I can't stop bothers me. And then third, forgiveness. Understanding that mistakes will be made, and they won't be made because we're not trying our hardest, but because we missed it, or because we didn't have the information we should have, or because somebody wasn't honest with us. That's really a great comment and question, and I thank you for that. And those are that would be what I would want to see from our community of Norton. One of the great things about Norton, I say to people all the time when I tell them I work in Norton, I choose to send my daughter there for her education, is that when things get tough, the tough get going, that old saying. And I really believe, we've gone through loss of family members, people in horrific situations, and the community always comes together to support it. And I think we'll do that again. Question about chorus. Chorus is another big question mark because of singing is still looking at more than 10 feet and outside versus inside. Yes, we want to have chorus, and that's our plan, but right now it's going to look a little different. It's going to look a lot more like music appreciation than it is per se chorus.
There's a few questions here, but specific questions to Norton High School regarding student schedules. I would reach out to your child's guidance counselor. I also know that Mr. Dolman is doing a parent question session tomorrow night. I believe that is at 7 p.m. So he will likely be answering a lot of those questions at that time as well.
Second graders don't typically use Chromebooks in school. Why do they need to bring them back and forth? I would anticipate we're going to be going to full remote at some point if I was a betting man. So for us, it's really about getting used to, same thing with K and 1 with the iPads. It's really about getting used to utilizing them on a regular basis, teaching them the tools. We now have a digital specialist in the district that we want to have them spend time with those teachers in those grade levels, really getting kids accustomed, because if we end at home, we're going to be utilizing those Chromebooks a lot more. So it's practice makes perfect, I guess, is the approach for our students. Outdoor recess, yes. Gym outdoors, please, yes. More recesses than ever before. We actually are breaking recesses, trying to break up these breaks of recesses into more time. I actually call them learning breaks. That's what I want to call them, but I don't even want to call them breaks. I want to call them health and safety learning, because it's really about, health and safety. It's about getting outside, feeling better, knowing how to not be too close to someone, how to take off your mask. That's what we're really trying to teach kids. As for all grades at the elementary level, yes.
Yeah. There's what I would say perhaps is, if your question wasn't answered, or, Joe and I missed it somehow, because we're still going through and there's still over 80 questions here, please reach out through Let's Talk. I think there's a lot of these questions here that will likely be answered with the building principals in terms of scheduling.
Some of the questions, Jen, around can parents donate hand sanitizer or medical masks? Right now, the answer is no. We've been asked to do our own PPEs, another acronym. So at this time, thank you for the kindness, but at this time, we won't be taking those donations. We're in pretty good shape. We're in very good shape in terms of the PPEs for the district. Having your child wear your own mask is probably one of the best things, because it saves on our end. We do have hand sanitizer in classrooms. A lot of parents are buying their own little small ones that the kids have in their backpack and all of that. That's fine, as long as they're preferably over 70%. But there will be other areas that I'm sure during this year that we will ask you for support, whatever that donation may be, either to support some of our families that are struggling. We like I said earlier, we've served over 100,000 breakfast and lunches since March 16th. I can't know too many other districts that have done that are the size of Norton, because we made a decision early on that we would not allow anyone to not be fed. And I'm sure somebody played the system at some point. There's no doubt it happens all the time. As I've said to many of you before, when they get to the pearly gates, they can answer that to someone else. I just can't deal with trying to find other ways. We have to feed our families as much as possible. So maybe there'll be some requests later on this year about how we can support families in need. We always do great around the holidays, but I wonder what this holiday of like Thanksgiving is going to look like, a holiday where we all get together with family and friends and have big meals and all of that. Maybe that'll be a time that we say we could use the extra help from our families that are able to do so. If there's a specific question and you don't get it answered also during your open houses with the principals, then again, use the Let's Talk. At one point, we were at 101 questions on the Let's Talk. We've answered hundreds upon hundreds on the Let's Talk. It's something that I can do via the app that I have on my phone. So I don't have to be behind a computer. I can be watching that great movie downstairs, and I can still be answering you and saying, hi, how are you? Thanks for your question. And sometimes maybe even give you an answer you don't want. But the idea is to respond to you as honestly as I can and as quickly. And please excuse my brevity in my responses. It's not because I don't want to say hi, how are you, and hope you're well, but I'm just trying to address questions as quickly as possible. The tents that are being used outside, Amanda, to your question, are being utilized as a place to stop in, a place to take a refresher, a place to maybe even, we've been talking about how we can rotate some of our students during their lunches and allow them to go outside under the tent, even on a cloudy day, and utilize them. I'm very concerned about what that looks like in the wintertime, but I think this winter, unless there's a lot of rain going on or snow, that we're going to be spending a lot of time still going outside in our coats, because hopefully that's going to actually support us and help us. But that's how we see the tents. They're not necessarily just there so kids can sit there and be taught by their teacher, although that will probably happen, but we want to make sure that it's constantly available, kind of a common area where students can stand. We've talked about students bringing in their own kind of beach towel in their backpack, so that if they go outside, they can lay it down and be able to kind of just spread out and stretch out. Remember, one of the reasons why we went from the 3 feet to the 6 feet is a big guy like me sat in the 3 feet area, and I said, these kids cannot be stuck to 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. This is crazy. By opening it by 6 feet, actually, some of our younger students can easily sit on the floor, which they do all the time. It's just, they're sitting on a tile floor, and if they go outside, we would want them to have something to sit on. You can donate other school supplies to your children's classrooms, but I would ask you to wait for some more of that to be specific. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to donate crayons, for example, that would be fine, as long as they're new, if you will, because we could always use that and then distribute them in the classroom. But things like hand sanitizer and those type of health and safety issues, I would ask you not to do. So paper towels, keep those, please, right now. Tissues, a lot of people are talking about the tissues. Elementary is kind of nice because the student could have their own tissue box at their desk. It's just for them. Then they just have to pick it up and go throw it away and then use the hand sanitizer, and it's all good to go. So that would be an area where if you're donating, we could potentially utilize some of that.
If a student can't wear a mask due to a medical condition, do you need to have a doctor's note? Yes, you do. Please get that to the building nurse and to your child's principal so we can help.
Yeah, and just to address that question, I know it's a hard question for people. I understand that. But one of the reasons why we went is we do also have an older staff within our schools. And so I want to assure them that we went through a process, and it's totally okay to have a medical note. I have staff members who are going to be using face shields. So one of my questions for you is, if your child can't wear a face mask because of a medical doctor's note, would the doctor say, can he wear a shield? I will make sure your child has a shield if you decide to go that route. So this is all about communication and trying to support each other with a situation that is still constantly moving.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions here regarding remote learning and what that will look like. We will answer as many of those questions as we can on Tuesday evening during that meeting. There are definitely still a few things that we are working to figure out, to be honest. There's a question about how specials will be handled in full remote. We are still looking at all of those different options.
The answer on middle school sports, if it's canceled, will it be looked at? Yes, that league is looking at, that Massasoit League is looking at creating another season later. Will it happen? That'll be up to them. It's a committee. It's a league that is very small, as you know. We're very strong in that league. We're one of the biggest communities in terms of sports because we play year round. That league will make the decision. It's not run by the superintendent's group or anything like that. It's run by the principals, actually. If lockers are used and bags enter classroom, what is possible for all phones that will now enter the classroom? Phones should always be off. It's a time to learn, but the ringer should be off. It should be on silent mode. That's what we expect from those students in those grades. It's predominantly a middle school situation, but because they would be told not to have them on their person.
Joe, are the middle schoolers changing classrooms or staying in the classroom?
They're changing classrooms right now. This is a big discussion that we've had. A lot of it has to do with the idea that at that age group, literally being in the same classroom all day is somewhat problematic, i.e. the science areas that are much more lab driven and all of that. And we'd still have to rotate everybody to do that. But we don't forget that our buildings, so every single one of our buildings has for the last few years not been at full capacity because of the number of special education internal programs that we've created, which is a wonderful thing for our students, all of our students, but for the record. But B, some of our buildings were built prior to IDEA, everything to do with IEPs and special education and 504s and even ADA. And so we've always had to come up with make-up spaces. But our buildings overall capacity from what they've been with enrollment and what they're going to be in a hybrid is that the buildings are with a district-wide. For example, the middle school has 101 less students. 101 of our remote parent choice is coming from the middle school. 40 of them in one grade. 40 of them in one grade. That's a pretty significant hit of how many students are going to be in an actual pod in the middle school. So if you're looking at LG, you're looking at a building that's usually around 265, 275. That building is going to be somewhere around 120, 125. So a lot more space per student is available than we've ever seen because of this hybrid model and the remote choices that have taken place. So we will, go ahead.
No, I was going to say a couple questions about those learning from home days, and will students be able to start whenever they want? We have designed those days to give parents some flexibility, but we also know that it's important to keep your child on a schedule. We know learning from home might not necessarily mean that they're at home. They may be at a grandparent's home, or they may be in a daycare situation. And we do understand that every family situation is a little bit different. That's why we're starting the lessons on those days with a video from the teacher that students can access at any time. However, I think it's really important for families to know that we will be taking attendance on those days as well. We are required to take attendance every single day, whether this child is learning in person or learning at home.
So can I just address that for a second? Because as a former principal, this is a big one. So there will be liars, just call it what it is, where they're going to say, I'm here, and then they turn it off and they go right back to bed. That is on you as a family. It's not on me. It's not on the district. So please work it out. There's expectations. There have been some questions just today with the commissioner's office where students are at the secondary level from remote in the spring, believing that they can be, quote, working at, at 11 in the morning doing pizza delivery and then doing their homework at 4 in the morning. That is not going to happen. So right off the bat, we're in a much structured schedule for our students than we were in the spring of not only, quote, direct delivery, but direct responsibility, and then students having to actually pass in work that is going to be graded in the traditional sense of grading through a standards-based report card or through numerical at the secondary level. So right off the bat, students being able to just do their homework whenever they want, remote only, or even the other one, the hybrid model of coming to school, it's going to be much more specific. However, to Jen's comment, we also recognize, for example, that we have over 25 students that are connected to staff members that are going to be in our building situated with champions, totally different from everybody, different lunches and all of that stuff. But they're going to be with their Chromebooks doing their work probably about a half a day on the day that they're just in daycare or in champions, and then lunch, and then some type of more of a champions afternoon, if you will. So that means something different for an elementary student, for example, than it does a middle schooler or a high schooler.
So the other question that's come up a couple times is, can we clarify where students are eating lunch? Students are eating
lunch in cafeterias, potentially outside at the secondary level, gymnasiums, half of gymnasiums that have been taken out. We have moved away from using the classrooms. We're using those spaces because, number one, it's feasible. Number two, it's a stretch break in many ways. And it just makes more sense in terms of keeping things clean, which then becomes that after effect, if you will, of the impact on everything else. So it's cafeterias, gymnasiums, and while the weather's still good outside. So I can see, for example, secondary students going outside. I can see elementary students going outside even. And I can assure you, you're going to be hearing a lot of structure questions, and principals tomorrow's Thursday, right? Principals are going to be hearing tomorrow from me around flexibility. Flexibility means, listen, if we've got a group of kids and someone to supervise them to go outside for lunch and the weather's beautiful, let's do it.
All right, I'm trying to go through these questions here. Will doors be locked throughout the school day as students are going in and out to tents?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will not change our protocols. It may mean having to circle around to the beginning of the building, but in most cases, we have the key fobs that our teachers utilize in our district, and that's what we would utilize. We'll be going through some special training too. It's a great question. We'll be going through some more specialized training around being outside in a potential intruder, potential police situation. So as we look at all of this, you have the 3 packets that may lead you to the 3 guidance that might lead you to more questions. And the most important one, to be quite honest, is the protocol one, because that one that affects you in your home and helping us to keep this disease away from our schools as much as possible so that we can have, you know, a good year, a great year, one that allows for us to do a lot of maybe different things. I have the utmost confidence in my staff. I know how much time my team has spent this summer. It has not been a summer for us where we can spend a lot of time with our families and kind of get back to retooling. I'm hoping to find some time to be able to support them in the near future to do that because they need it. But we're confident that we're doing the right things, that we're checking the right boxes, that we're demanding things from folks. And as I think many of you know, some of you I know think that I'm being a little maybe arrogant in my approach, but I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm just trying to be straightforward and give you answers to questions that I can answer. And if I can't, I'll get you answers based on 6 or 7 tonight alone and probably more coming in. But also the other part is I need you to do your part. I've never taught you how to parent. You've read emails from me before. I'm not telling you how to parent. I'm just asking you to parent. This time, I'm asking you to parent by following certain health requirements that will support your child, support you, support other siblings, support grandparents, support neighbors, support kids that are coming to school, and then lastly, supporting staff so that they're in front of kids and are able to teach them on a regular basis. Good night, Jen. As always, another Zoom meeting with Jen O'Neill. I think we're at probably 1,000 since March.
At least.
Appreciate your work, Jen. To the parents, thank you so much for sticking with us and supporting us. And as always, for our Norton pride that I know you all feel, and be flexible, be kind, and be forgiving. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. And if we did not get to your question, please do submit it through Let's Talk. I will start getting through those questions over there now. So have a great night. Thank you.